You're listening to Rolling Recklessly, the podcast where dice hit the floor, paint gets spilled, and no game ever goes exactly as planned. I'm Grizzly, and here we dive headfirst into Warhammer, tabletop gaming, and the beautiful mess that is the hobby life. From epic crits to absolute disasters, we'll cover it all. So grab your minis, roll with me, and let's get reckless. Welcome to the very first episode of Rolling Recklessly. I'm Robert, your host, and I'm excited to finally get this podcast rolling. This show is all about the best parts of tabletop gaming, from Warhammer, miniature painting, terrain building, and of course, all of the reckless dice rolls that make this hobby unpredictable and fun. Today, I'll share a little about how I got into Warhammer, give you a quick hobby update, and then dive into a topic I think every new hobbyist should hear. What I wish I knew when I was starting out. So grab your minis, grab your dice, and let's roll. Since this is episode 1, let me just take a minute to introduce myself and explain kind of how I found my way to the hobby. My name is Robert, aka Grizzly. Back in the summer of 2023, me and my girlfriend, we were part of a D&D party campaign, and they used to meet up at this shop called Funkatronic Rex. Funkatronic Rex, super awesome store, super cool employees, and that's kind of how we got into Warhammer. At the time, they were just finishing up a campaign, a narrative campaign for Age of Sigmar, and it some of these models caught my girlfriend's attention, and before you know it, we were over there, and then some of the store employees came over, started talking to us, explaining it, like basically what was going on, what all these grown-up cool toys are around the store, and kind of like everything about into it. So we went home, did a little bit of research. Each of us decided that we were going to pick a faction, which was pretty cool. We both watched a ton of videos. We're diving into lore, and everything was getting kind of more interesting. And then we finally decided that Warhammer was for us. So without even planning it, I gravitated towards Sylvaneth. I'm more of a elves, druid type character. And then she chose Magakin of Nurgle. I will say, not generally like her, but super cool aesthetics that she really liked. So later when we compared factions and we realized how deeply those two factions are tied into the lore, that connection made me feel like the hobby had kind of chosen us and that we'd been chosen for it. Since then, we've been collecting and assembling, painting. Together, we now have over 2,000 points of several different armies. Sylvaneth, Nurgle, Gloomspite Gitz, Caradron Overlords, and Seraphon. Plus, we have a few of the commemorative models. Those are really cool. I know she's trying to collect all those. And then we also have the full Warhammer Cursed City set. I've also played a few games of Warhammer Underworlds. Super, super awesome games. Kind of nice. Reminds me of the app. So for me, this podcast is just another way for me to share my excitement with the hobby. I like the stories, the painting struggles, the tabletop chaos, and the community that really makes it all worth it. All right, let's jump into a quick hobby update. Lately, I've been working on my Gloomspite Gitz, the Git Mob Army Box. At this point, pretty much everything is assembled. I think I only have maybe 4 more of the little goblins to assemble. And those are the guys that ride onto the back of the chariots. Nothing's really painted or based yet. So right now it's just kind of a sea of gray plastic staring at me from my desk. But even at this stage, it's exciting to kind of see the army take shape. The model that really stands out the most to me is probably Drog's Sunchompa. His sculpt looks great. It's the greatest probably their best sculpt in the whole faction, I want to say. I really enjoy that they took advantage and really jumped into the wolf aesthetic as far as the Gloomspite Gitz are going. Drog's pose, he just looks great. He's really detailed, and I just can't wait to really get some paint on him, really make him pop and stand out, get him pushing and moving along the tables. I will say the whole Gloomspite Gitz and goblins as a whole, they have a real fun kind of chaotic energy to them. They don't play in a traditional sense of run, charge, deal damage, try to capture points that way, because, well, if you breathe on them too hard, they're gonna die for sure. So I'm excited to kind of learn that strategy and really push these guys forward. When I was new to the hobby, I made plenty of rookie mistakes. So let me share a couple lessons that I kind of wish I had known before I started. First, look at what's essential versus extra. You don't need every tool or paint in the store to begin. Get yourself a set of clippers, a hobby knife, and some Citadel glue. And then if you want, get a starter set of paint. That's all you really need. The basics will get you building and painting without actually breaking a bank. Now, there are a lot of extras that you can get to make hobbying easier, more comfortable, and in some cases, a little more fun. Things like a wet palette, better lighting, storage solution, and more. But I'll save those for another episode where I can really go into detail about all the extras that are worth it. For today, I just kind of want to focus on keeping everything simple. Next thing, when jumping into getting into Warhammer, make sure you budget smart. Warhammer, definitely super costly hobby, very expensive to get into, especially if you're not like looking for the value in things. The starter boxes are going to be your best value for sure. Look at your spearheads. Every year they do like a couple like army boxes like during like holiday times where you'll get like, it's almost like the equivalent of 2 spearheads or like a spearhead and like a unit, just a couple different ways to like buy the units in the army as opposed to the traditional route of going and buying like unit by unit. On top of that, if you go to Games Workshop and buy everything unit by unit, you're going to be spending way more money than necessary than into a hobby that's already like relatively expensive. The spearheads, again, I really recommend those for the fact that like as soon as you buy your spearhead, paint your spearhead or assemble your spearhead and paint it, you can actually play. They have, I like to call it Sigmar Junior, but it's spearhead. And it's just like a miniaturized, simplified version of the game, and it's optimized really well to get new players really into the game. There's a lot of bookkeeping in 4th edition, and they've actually like streamlined it incredibly down from 3rd edition when I first started to now this new way that's actually really, really nice. So getting your spearhead boxes not only gets you probably the best value for units, you're also going to get your spearhead to play miniature games. Now that we know which kind of boxes you're looking for, now you need to find a place to buy. Obviously, you can go to Games Workshop and buy everything for MSRP, and you'll get everything nice and how Games Workshop wants to distribute their product. I definitely recommend obviously going check out your like local gaming store. They're probably going to have the best price, better especially compared to Games Workshop, and they can probably order everything you need. On top of that, that's where you're probably more than likely going to be playing. That's where you're going to meet players. That's just where the gaming is going to happen. So I definitely recommend there. Also check like websites like eBay and OfferUp. I've bought, I would say like maybe 60% of my models off of eBay. Some of them are already used, some of them are already painted, primed, and assembled. And if that's not your gig, you don't want to do that part of the hobby, that's 100% fine, 100% reasonable, and totally understandable. I enjoy it. Just because I enjoy it doesn't mean everybody else does. So if you really want to get all your stuff that's like pre-painted and pre-assembled, you can go on eBay and just buy a full army if you want. And that's going to be like probably your best bet, your best budget. Now that you have your tools, you have your models, hopefully you got everything that you want going for you. Now is the part where you actually have to assemble, paint, and create like your army. And it can be fun. It can be challenging. I will say like, the big thing that happens in especially Warhammer is hobby burnout. I will say by the time I was done painting all of my dryads, I have 3 units of dryads. Each dryad unit is 10 units each. I was kind of over it, especially you're just throwing brown and then maybe highlighting brown, dry brush a little bit of white on there, and you're basically done from that point. But when you're doing it 30, 40 times, it can definitely be repetitive. So hobby burnout's going to happen, if you start feeling like yourself getting like too kind of over it, take a moment to like split, do something else, kind of change your mind, and then come back to it later, because you don't necessarily need to rush unless you're like trying to set like a time limit or a goal. You have a tournament or something you're trying to sign up for, and at that point hopefully you're using that for like motivation to get everything done. Next thing I want to talk about is actually the best thing about Warhammer. I mean, aside from the models and the minis, it's the community. For me, a big part of that has been like local gaming stores that keep the hobby alive here. First off, we have like a huge shout out to J&J Gaming Factory. That's kind of where I spend my time playing, rolling my dice, talking shop, and connecting with other players. Places like that are kind of like the heartbeat of the gaming scene. Another spot I wanted to mention was Imperial Outpost here in Glendale. Unfortunately, they're closing down. This is their last weekend here, which is a real loss for the community. They've been a great spot for players over the years. They had like 3 rooms. It was really enjoyable to play. I just want to say thank you to them for being just such an important part of our local hobby. And then, of course, I want to shout out Funkatronic Rex. That's where me and my girlfriend actually first stumbled across Age of Sigmar, and if it wasn't for that store, for that group of players, we might not have even gotten into Warhammer at all. So I just want to give like a shout out to those guys and say a big thank you to them. These shops are more than just places to buy models. They're like where your friendships are built, where stories happen, and where the hobby grows. If you got a local game store near you, support them. By the end of the day, the community is really what keeps this whole thing alive. Alright, before we wrap up, I just want to give you a look at what's coming up on Rolling Recklessly. In the next very episode, I'll be joined by my friend Jesse, and together we're going to deep dive into Spearhead, the new way to play Age of Sigmar, aka Sigmar Jr. We'll cover why it's fun, what it offers newcomers, and share some of our own reckless dice stories along the way. Beyond that, I've got a lot of ideas for future episodes, things like lore deep dives, where we look into the factions that we love and the stories that make Warhammer more than just models on the table. We'll give out painting and hobby tips, from tackling your pile of shame to learning what tools and extras make hobbying smoother. I also want to do some community spotlights where I highlight local players, shops, and events that keep the hobby alive. We'll give out some game reviews and battle recaps, breaking down matches, sharing tactics, and laughing at all the chaos that unfolds when the dice betray us. I'd also like to do even a giveaway. We're actually going to do a giveaway after this very first episode. So who doesn't like free models? Make sure you sign up, share, follow us. This podcast is going to just be a mix of strategy, storytelling, and hobby tips. Just celebrating everything that makes tabletop gaming fun. So whether you're here for the crits, the lore, or just to laugh at the fails, there's something for you. Thanks for rolling recklessly with me today. If you enjoyed this first episode, follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. You can also find me on Instagram at Rolling Recklessly Podcast for behind the scenes hobby updates and community posts. Until next time, may your crits be high, your paint never dry, and your roll